So many of the working professionals who enroll in the BBR Spoken English program have this common complaint when they come out to us. And we also hear these complaints on our replies to our newsletters as well all the time. And this common complaint is that we do know how to read and write English, but when it comes to speaking English, particularly in a public environment, we just simply can't do it. Our throat goes dry, our mind goes blank, we just do not are able to recall the words we need to use to speak in front of other people. Being very honest, this is a very common issue. In fact, majority of India suffers from this particular disease where they can read and write English, to the point that we have actually coined a term for it by ourselves called as the silent English, where basically you know and understand the English but just can't speak it. Now, this issue of silent English happens for two reasons. The first reason ends up being is that you just haven't really built up the confidence of speaking in English. And that has to do with the fact that you were not really raised in an environment where you were given consistent encouragement and feedback to speak English. Your experience and exposure to good spoken English was largely limited to senior news anchors or Hollywood movies, which you would rarely get a chance to see because you probably grew up in the late 80s or early 90s, and we didn't really have the luxury of internet and all the other broadcasting media we have these days. So second answer being is you also did not have sufficient practice. You didn't have an opportunity to practice spoken English enough. And that would lead to multiple problems as well, because you can't read and understand when you do have sufficient time. But in spoken English, you have to deliver it fast. You have to give a response in real time. You have to understand what is being said to you and you have to reply back. And that can add a lot of pressure, not to mention the fact that this is also performance pressure because you're in front of the other people. So you're always very conscious. Oh, how are you looking? How are people judging you? Any reaction which is not good from the audience, even though that has nothing to do with how you are speaking, can throw you off. Now, since we've discussed what are the reasons why you might be struggling to speak even though you know how to read and write, well, let's go into some of the solutions of how we can make sure that you can start improving in spoken English as well. First and foremost, I would say is start with taking a recording device on your phone or your laptop and just start speaking out loud in yourself in English and taking feedback from it. Okay, so what it does is that first it will get you confident about speaking. Okay, the speaking also involves just not about just throwing out words, it also involves production of voice. And if you're not used to how to use those voice to produce English words, when you are in a stressful situations, you just mumble or stumble or you fumble, all of those things starts to happen. So the more you get used to it, the more you get used to speaking those words, even if you're just doing it alone and even if you're doing it wrong, it's okay. It just builds up the muscle and it builds up the confidence inside of you that you can speak. Obviously, you do also want to take the feedback from your friends and family, get an idea on what are the parts they find it difficult to understand in your speaking. Do they find certain words and pronunciations difficult? Do they think that you speak too fast, or do they think that there is a clarity missing? Once you start getting that objective feedback from many people, you can start to focus on what areas to improve upon. Second solution number 2 would be just to practice by going outside in the real world and speak English. You simply just cannot imagine the amount of difference it will make once you start putting yourself out there and start speaking in English in public. At first few times it will feel unnatural, uncomfortable, and you might make mistakes, sometimes embarrassingly so, but that is okay. We all have done that. We have all gone through the same journey where we made those embarrassing mistakes, but eventually you find that those embarrassing mistakes are not the end of the world. Right now it may feel so, but they really aren't. And the more you get confident with making those mistakes, the more you will be able to communicate with the people using spoken English in the situations that are demanded, particularly in your office settings or your client meetings or any kind of a sales or a prospective call, no matter what your working environment demands out of you. So finally, I would just want to say is that if you can write in English well, you can speak in English well and with fluency. There is no reason you just can't. All you need to do is remember that these two problem points are the reason that you are unable to speak right now. But because it's a problem, there's always a solution. And now I've already given you 2 solutions. Number 1, record, listen, and take feedback. Number 2, go outside, put yourself into the public space and in office settings and start speaking in English. Thank you.